for me to do that job at 100%, to be able to run in and sacrifice myself right now for you, I couldn't have anything tie me down. And unfortunately for me, the only way I knew how to do that was to set up walls.
You know, a lot of issues we're having today are happening because people haven't had a chance to decompress.
You know, you've just gone through a massive change in environment. You've literally just, 20 hours later, 24 hours later, you're in a completely different environment.
People say you're not alone, but you are alone in that struggle. It's not my theory, I know this, you're all alone. If therapy and talking to the support unit around you gets you better, then you do that. You just do what you gotta do.
Welcome back to Mulligan Brothers. Today's video, as always, was sponsored by Huel. I'm drinking Huel Black Edition, which has 26 vitamins and minerals, 35 grams of protein and slow release carbs to make sure that I can stay satiated and proteined up whilst I make these documentaries. If you want to find out more about these, go to the link in the description. I'll talk about them a little bit later on in the video.
People say you're not alone, and you're not alone in your suffering. You might have people who love and support you around you, or colleagues who work with you and who want to support you around you, but you are alone in that struggle. You are alone, and I know. It's not my theory. I know this. You're all alone, and it's down to you to get better. Now you can get better, and how you get better, that's what you got to do. Is like do what works for you. If therapy and talking to the support unit around you gets you better, then you do that. If doing physical fitness or shooting or riding your motorbike faster than what you should do is better for you, then do it. If having a couple of beers with your friends lines you up and makes you better, then do it. You just do what you got to do. And what happened, there's one point, there's a friend of mine, he was a friend of mine and is a friend of mine, and there's no criticism to this guy whatsoever, but it's an interesting, I hope it's a short little story that hopefully people can learn something from. And I didn't really bring it up, and I should have really while I was still serving. Phones me up a few months after the incident, and he's like, "Hey, Christian, I've known you for nearly 20 years. I know that you're not bothered about this, blah blah blah, but we've got to do our checks and balances. We've got to make sure that you're all right. But I know that you're tough. You're a tough cookie. So, but are you all right?" Inside I was screaming to say, no, I'm not all right. I'm hurting here. I'm not all right. But it's that thing. I was like, yeah, mate, I'm all cool. No issues. But inside it was screaming, going, I'm not all right. I need help and I need it now. But I was like, yeah, mate, I'm fine. And I think the takeaway from that story would be, and it's not his fault, but for me, if I was to do that again, and maybe I did bring it up, I can't remember if I did, but if he'd saw me face to face, whether even if it was a video call, I think there and he would have said, "You're not all right. You're coming home right now," or "I'm coming out to you," or whatever. But I was just like, "Yeah, I'm fine." But inside I was screaming and going, I wanted to say, "I'm not all right."
Themes of mental health, the film that you did, there's themes of mental health in that as well. And the word, when we spoke about earlier today, the word hopelessness, and I think that's a tremendous word for it, because that is the tragic word I think that men especially feel when they're suffering with the mental health, depression, suicide, when they feel like there's no hope left. Yeah. That's when I feel like it's a really dire, dangerous situation.
Yeah, and I think that's the what goes on today. And I tried to say some stuff about this in the past. About I wasn't born Christian Craighead. I mean, I know it's a pseudonym, but I wasn't born that character. I developed it after incidents and yeah, I got into the SES when I was 30, and the Kenya incident happened when I was 43. So all of that was developing him to that point. And this is going out to everyone out there who's 15, 16, 17, 18, 53. Doesn't matter. Life's not over. Don't give up on it. Don't give up on it, because you, like I said, all these like strange routes, it might seem that everything is going so wrong for you. But actually, that's what's supposed to happen. And I know it's kind of patronizing when someone says, oh, everything that's supposed to happen is supposed to happen. And people, it's up to you if you want to believe this or don't believe it. But it's that I think it's shaping, life is shaping. And the things that, and even to the people who say, well, he died and, but you didn't do anything. When I say about, I was training for that incident all my life. Yeah. But what you could also say is everything that my mother did, everything that my grandfather did, everything that their grandfather did and their grandfather did, everything was shaping everything up to that 15th of January. And everything I'm doing is, and so you don't know, your actions might not be, it's easy to look at a selfish point of view, but your actions might be shaping or making the path for your grandchild, for someone else in life. So don't be like, again, it's easy to look about, it's all about me, it's all about us, but we don't know life's too complicated to humanize. And some people say, yeah, you live, you born, you die. Cool. If you want to believe that, believe that. I don't. I think we've all got a role to do in some way, but it's when you feel hopeless, and social media definitely does not help. The fact that again, people on social media, they're only showing you what they want you to see. And it's like people who are famous, a lot of actors who are, there's a lot of really famous actors who've been actors all their life, fine. But there's others who had to work and grind and go against their own doubt and do the shitty jobs and the parts they didn't want to play. And then they're in their 40s and now everyone in the world thinks they're the best thing ever. But they don't see all that stuff that took, all that road that led them to that point. So it's kind of easy from where we're sitting to say, oh yeah, don't give up, but you just got to try and look and say who life's. I've seen too much stuff go on in this world now to make sense of it, and just don't give up. Don't give up on yourself, and the points that I thought was like, one, don't kill yourself, because if you do, you're going to break someone's heart. And, there's so many people that will be devastated by you leaving. And if you're watching this and you say, well, I've got no friends and everyone hates me, that's cool. Don't kill yourself, because don't give the bastards the satisfaction. Prove them wrong, and they'll make them hate you even more. So you can get some satisfaction out of that. I would anyway. And then the other thing is, like, when suicide is, I don't just mean suicide by doing whatever it takes to end your life right there and then. It's the thing called death by despair. Don't give up on yourself. Don't say, well, I'm not going to do anything. Life's rubbish anyway. I'm just going to go to the pub, going to go to Wetherspoons and just drink my life away today. Or I'm going to do drugs. And you might kill yourself tomorrow. You might kill yourself in 3 weeks' time. You might kill yourself in 30 years' time after a lifetime of just destroying your body. It's all the same. It's all the same result. It all comes back to just don't give up on yourself. You got to go alone, do whatever it takes, and just come back. That's all it means.
I want to include in the documentary, like, I think the journey of the ego death, and like, you doing that. But to do that, I wanted to give the context of the ego. And I'm wondering if you could go back to when you were in, really in the depth of that ego, if you could speak from it as if you were in that place. Like, how did you speak about yourself? Like, what was your self-talk in that moment when you had that ego?
When I was still in?
Yeah, when you were still in, yeah. So not now, just for the cameras, just for awareness. Like, this isn't who DJ is today, but like back then, like how would you, speak of yourself, or talk to who you were?
Typically humble around the guys, and when you come home, you're the real deal. Like, I'm the fucking reason we're all here. I am. That job, as much as you resent it, is the only reason you're sitting on that couch. Without them, there are no bills to pay. That creates stability for this whole family, and if I don't do it, what are we doing? I'm not going to Home Depot, I'm not getting any other job, and if you don't want to fucking be here, leave. You're going to take the kids, fucking go. Do it before I deploy, I don't care. And I'd say it just like that. If you don't like the way this fucking train is going, you can jump off anytime, honey, I'm not slowing down for you. And that was really the ego, is I had to build up these walls, and I had to build up that in my mind so I could be that Neil McCauley from Heat. I'll walk the fuck away from you right now, as much as I love you. And a lot of that is I'd never really show it. I'd show it in the honeymoon stage, and then I saw the reality, and I was like, I can't do that. Because there are times in that career path where you have to be ready to self-sacrifice. And it is a very hard thing to do when you were thinking about your wife and kids. So that is what the name of the game was. I am not thinking about you. And I tell them that now. There wasn't a singular time that I allowed them to go into my conscious thought riding on a helicopter on the way into the target. Never. I would not allow them. I didn't call them before I left. I usually didn't call them after I got home. They weren't on the forefront of my mind. And if we're being honest, if you looked at all my photos, you won't see pictures of them hanging up inside my room. I try to keep that out of sight, out of mind. And I know that sounds fucked up for me because I do love them. And hindsight being 2020, I would have left for them. But at the moment, I wouldn't have. If you would have asked me now, if I was still in, she's like, I need for you to retire, I would have retired. Knowing what I know now. Back then, I would have told her to pack her shit. And that's really what it took. Like, for me to do that job at 100%, to be able to run in and sacrifice myself right now for you, I couldn't have anything tie me down. And unfortunately for me, the only way I knew how to do that was to set up walls. Set up walls and little pillars they just couldn't get through. And I'd come to the door spitting venom on my face just to keep them away from me. I'm leaving on a trip. Or I'd come home from a long trip, we'd get into a blowout. I'd come home pissed off about something. Like, why the fuck did I even come home for this? The fuck am I even doing here? Why are you still here? Why haven't you fucking left me yet? I'd say things like that. Because in the back of my mind, I thought if she left, it would give me full reign to do whatever I wanted to do. Internally, it's not what I wanted. I wanted her to accept me. I wanted her to understand what I'm going through, but I didn't have the ability to say it. I didn't have the ability to sit down and tell her, like, I'm scared shitless. I'm scared shitless I'm going to lose my position in this community. I'm scared I'm going to die overseas and make you a fucking 2-time widow. There's a lot of pressure on me, man. Like, I don't know how to compartmentalize it. I don't know how to push through this. The only thing I know how to do is do this job. And right now you're drawing bandwidth that I can't reproduce any other place. I don't know what else you want me to do. It's not a fucking basketball game. I can't take an off season. Like, I'm doing this same thing as many times as humanly possible until I get killed or get kicked out of this place. What do you want me to do? And it was so easy to justify. Like, guys that get killed, playing for keeps, man. Playing for keeps. You sure you want me to take a 2-week fucking vacation for Christmas? I really don't want to take one. And that's a lot of what we did. We didn't take vacations. We didn't take summer vacations. We didn't take time off. I never made time to do it because I didn't think it was worth it, because it didn't have any benefit in me. At least I didn't see it at the time. It was so much easier just to, nope, we're good. I need to focus on this. And sometimes doing nothing is doing everything. Like, what do you want to do tonight? Nothing. I want to sit here and watch that TV, and I don't want you to talk to me. I'm just trying to reset my balance. And it's a hard thing for a wife to hear, man, because they do not want to hear it. They don't understand. As much as they say they do, they don't. And I think now that I'm out, that's a lot of the feedback I get. We get more calls from wives than anything else. Thank you so much for saying that, because now I understand my husband. Yeah. I'm not the greatest dude that's ever lived, clearly. But if you take me to the core and reproduce me like 10,000 times, I'm the majority of what your husband is. Yes, damn. Is he better than me? Is he more well? Sure. But at the core, the guy who's an idealist who really, really loves that job, whatever that job is, he's like me. He is setting up walls. He is trying to push you away because he's trying to focus on that right now, and he doesn't know because he doesn't have a dial. He's only got a switch. It's a hard thing, man, when you leave it. Now you sacrifice the family, you sacrifice relationship with the kids. And as we talked about today, like my whole focus now is I'm just trying to rewrite positives on top of negatives. Anytime I have a negative interaction, I try to overlay a positive on top of it. And I think the ego death gave me that. It gave me the ability to see for what it is in the time and place that it is and show remorse. Like, oh, fuck, man, I didn't mean to say that, dude. I did mean to say that. I didn't mean to say it like that. And here's why. And I'll retract it. I'll retract it really quick. But a lot of the times, I'd never do that before. I'd hammer down. Nope, that's it. And it's not a superpower to do that. It's not. To be able to show a little bit of empathy and show a little compassion to people, it goes a lot further. And we had this conversation when I was in with a guy about being able to crush people, crush your enemies, and, you know, physically being able to control the situation. And one of the guys had one, he goes, it's one thing to be able to crush everybody. It's one thing to be able to control every situation physically. It's another to be able to control it and not let them know you can control it. I can sit back and I can let you do or say whatever you want to, and I'm not going to perceive it positively or negatively. I know that I can control the outcome of this whenever I want to. That's a superpower. I'm going to hide in the white noise and I'll just sit here, and then whenever I want to, I'll change it. I wish I would have had that optic back then. I wish I would have had the optic to sit back and go, I don't need to jump up, I don't need to shout, I don't need to flex, I don't need to do any of this. I don't need to do that at all. Gotta have a dial though. It's very hard to develop.
I mean, that is the really, really interesting thing, especially to me. Like, that's what I really want to hear about.
Do you have more questions on the ego?
Yeah, there's the death of the ego, I think, is the biggest one.
So because I compartmentalized my whole family the whole time I was in, I was never homesick. You know, we do 6-month deployments, 4-month, 5-month, whatever it's going to be. I'd gone for 30 days, you know, jump trips and everything else. Never homesick. Never think about it, really. And it's not a good thing or bad. It doesn't mean I didn't love my wife, love my kids. I did, obviously. But I didn't want them to interfere with my process and whatever I was going through. Like, I needed to be an individual right now. I can't be a family guy because my family ain't here. There's no reason for me to give you any bandwidth right now when I'm trying to jump out of this airplane. Like, I need to focus on this. And a lot of that came with living life like you were single and living alternate lives. And that's a lot of the egos. I can't be the person I want to be with you right now. So whenever I'm not with you, I'll be whoever I want to be. And I'd adopt these different lives. I'd go out to Arizona and I'd live the professional skydiver life and just had a whole different group of friends and demographics and different speech and different clothes I'd wear. And different. I would just be different whenever I wanted to be. And you finally get to a point where you start to lose who you really are. And then you all start to morph together. And before you know it, like, you're combining multiple worlds into one. And the only thing I do know is, well, if I don't like it, I'll slam the wall. If I don't like this, I'll hammer down, I'll just leave. Oh, you don't like it? I'll be gone for 10 days, see when I get back. And I just bolt. When that's no longer an option, when that identity has kind of consumed you, you really lose sight of who you really were and why you really started. And now it wasn't so much about the end state anymore. It was about just feeding my own ego. Like, well, I have to pep talk myself. I have to tell myself I'm worthy of all this. I have to tell myself the sun rises and sets on me. And that the only thing that really matters is me and my career and all the things I want to do. In reality, it's not the case. But when you're in the moment, you don't realize what you're doing. You don't realize what you're saying or the ramifications, the impact they have on others. You just don't see it for what it is. And it wasn't until I went down to Mexico and did some serious therapy, taking some psychedelics, that I really realized what the ego death was. And I know because that was the first time I'd ever been homesick. When I woke up from Ibogaine that first day, I would have cut my arm off to be home. I've never wanted to teleport back home so bad in my whole life, ever. I've never wanted to be home that bad. Even though my entire world back home was just in a death spiral. It didn't matter. I just wanted to go home and wrap my arms around my old lady and my kids and just tell them I'm sorry. And I knew I'd never have the opportunity. Like, that was really jamming me up. And then we did 5-MeO-DMT. That is the true ego death. So I think the way I went through it is that Ibogaine confirmed everything I'd ever done in my whole life to try to achieve this level. And that level was where my ego was setting. Everything I've ever done justified this person I've turned myself into. How I look physically, how I speak, how I dress, however, it's all purpose built. And I did all of that because I thought I needed to be that person. And then when you smoke that 5-MeO-DMT, things get very, very different because it shows you how small you are in reality. And you realize that you don't matter. You don't matter at all. My contribution to the war effort means nothing. My contribution to society means nothing because the majority of it was built on hate, discontent. And now the whole thing's just turned to negative. It's like I never wanted it to be. I only wanted to be positive. I'm happy by nature. Like, how did I end up like this? How did I end up like this? Just having like this self-reflection, like, And how the fuck did I end up like this, dude? And then you're sitting around this room with all these dudes who you've looked up to your whole life, and they're saying the same thing to you. I'm like, dude, I sit in that fucking guest room with that pistol between my legs trying to figure out how I'm going to shoot myself to not ruin the fucking ceiling for months, dude. Months. And none of you said anything to me? Never? Out of all the conversations we had, all the times we've been deployed, all the times we sit on 8-hour fucking road trips, just you and me, you've never said that to me? How? How the fuck were you going to let me lay back there and die? How? It's like, I was fucking pissed, dude. Like, if you knew how close I came to shoot myself back there, you would have fucking told me, man. Like, that's a realization. Like, if you don't ask and you don't tell anybody what you're going on, no one's going to know. If you do not give this thing a voice, you'll just end up like another statistic back there. Another bloody spot on the fucking ceiling. Somebody in here cleaning up the carpet, selling the house. Like, that's how you end up. That's how your story ends. If you don't say it, if you don't give it a voice, if you're not just open and honest. And that's what I did. I went down there. I smoked that shit and I fell back. I did it 5 or 6 times. I did it a bunch. And it wasn't until I felt myself die. And that was the realization I had, is I was so depressed. I smoked the initial bit and I felt it. It was right on the cusp and I was still holding on to it. I didn't want to feel it go because it feels like you're dying. It's the strangest thing. And the last attempt I had, my doctor came over and he put his hand on me. He's like, you got to let it go, man. You got to let it go. And I gave myself a little pep talk and I went, why don't you just stop being a pussy and just kill yourself right now in front of all these fucking people? And I smoked that last one with the intent to kill myself. No, I lit that thing up and I inhaled that and I imagined that all the smoke was purple. And I was like, I'm going to paint the entire inside of every inch of my lungs with this purple poison and I'm going to hold it as long as possible. And when I exhale it, I'm going to try to exhale my lungs out of my throat. I'm going to try to kill myself right now in front of these people. And in my mind, that would have been easier than going back home and facing music. And I sat there Indian style in that bed in Mexico and I was like, fuck it. Had the doctor there, had all the nurses, there's nobody else around, just me solo. And I smoked that thing as hard as I possibly could. And when I hit my head to that pillow, everything in my world shattered. It literally feels like you explode. And if you don't try to control it and you just throw your arms out and let it take you, it'll kill you. And it was the most liberating feeling of my entire life. I felt so insignificant on the planet that when I came back to it, everything was in alignment. Everything I'd ever done had been forgiven. Every past indiscretion, every ounce of guilt, judgment, resentment I've ever held for anybody was gone in an instant. And none of it mattered. None of it. And it was crystal clear in my mind. The only thing that did matter were the people that I wanted to associate with. The only thing I truly give a shit at all is my wife, my 2 kids. That's it. Nothing else matters. And now I have to go back and figure out how I'm going to solve this. It's like, I don't know if it can be solved. I think when I pull back this thread and she sees what I've really been doing, how bad I've really gotten, I don't think she'll take me back. And that was the scariest moment. It's like, now that I've hit this newfound me with this clarity and this sobriety and this different outlook on life, will it even be accepted? That's what was terrifying. All this work I've done, as far as I've come, as good as I feel, as sober as I am, it's all for nothing now. You're going to have to go and face the music now. And that was the hardest thing for me. But that ego death from where I thought I was to where I ended up, you'd have to do it to know. You would. But from who I was 24 hours prior to that guy, couldn't be farther apart. My wife will tell you, when I walked on the back of that truck, that's the very first thing she did. She pulled off my sunglasses and she pulled them off and started bawling. My eyes were jet black, dude. I mean, I had before and after pictures somewhere. I mean, they were black. And that's what everybody says. You lose all the color in your eyes. You lose all the consistency. You don't focus your eyes anymore. You just walk around with this blank stare. Like, you just don't care. You look like old timers at a nursing home, just going through life, going through the motions. When I came off that thing, she pulled my glasses off. Crystal clear. I could see everything and she knew it. She's like, oh my God. She threw her arms around my neck and we just cried for 2 hours on the back of that truck. And from that moment on, that has been the closest we've ever been, even since the honeymoon stage, even since dating. We've never been as tight as we are now because we've been through so much together. I think that's the strength we have now is there's nothing else to go through. We've gone through everything. Everything that we could have gone through, we've already gone through and we've made it through. Like now we're the best we've ever been. I'm so thankful for it now. But it was not easy. It was not fun.
Today's episode, as always, was powered by Huel. This stuff has been absolutely crucial to my training and the world record I just broke, the world's heaviest marathon, where I carried 220 pounds for 28 miles. Yes, I achieved it, guys. It is done. This is what I was drinking. Huel Black Edition. It has 35 grams of protein, 26 vitamins and minerals and slow release carbs. And it's what I use in my training all the time. But don't just take my word for it. People like the hardest geezer ran across Africa drinking this stuff. It's absolutely amazing. And if you want to get exclusive offers and deals, go to the link in the description and you can find out more about their other products like their daily greens and their meals, which I eat every single lunchtime. Thank you to Huel for sponsoring the video, and let's dive back into the episode.
Yeah, I think you've got to be really self-aware and self-observant of your emotions. At the same time, you know, when you go overseas and when you're carrying out operations, you do tend to, you know, like have a switch that, you know, when you start doing whatever it is you need to do, you almost like just, or you're able to compartmentalize those emotions and switch them off whilst you're doing what you need to do. But you need to be self-observant and self-aware of that, because I think that's probably where people could run into problems down the line. You need to deal with that emotion at some stage. And yeah, like I've always been pretty good with that kind of stuff. There was kind of one experience that I had when where yeah, like it was quite a, you know, the last 3 months of a tour was quite a kinetic, fast moving. You know, we were going out on jobs most nights, and I'd come back from. So we literally did. Yeah, it was a busy time in that tour, and you know we were going out on multiple jobs most nights, and to the point that when we did our handover consisted of just going out on the ground, and yeah, you know we managed to do some good work and took down a network in a certain area. But I remember returning from that, and like I got fast tracked. Usually you go and do some sort of decompression, and I came back within, you know, I remember coming off a job that, you know, we did three jobs on the bounce, and then I remember coming back and jumped on a plane and flew back to the UK, and I was back in 24 hours on the train up to Preston to meet my then girlfriend. And I knew inside that like something wasn't right. And you know, you call it PTSD or whatever, but it was just like a feeling that I had inside that you'd just gone through this, you know, you'd just gone through a massive change in environment and emotion and what's been going on. And you literally just, you know, 24 hours later, you're in a completely different environment. It's a benign environment. There's no danger. And yeah, it was a weird feeling. And I just kind of had in my head that everything will be all right. And like, probably took about 3 weeks for me to get back to normal. I didn't speak about it back then. I didn't tell anyone. But like I was arguing with my girlfriend at the time, like every night. I found drink could help, which, you know, isn't the right answer, but it just numbed what I was feeling. And yeah, like I just had it in my head that I think the more time went on, the better I felt, which just confirmed that, you know, eventually this will pass and I'll be fine, which it did. And it's just a reaction that you have from going from one extreme to another, right? You go from fighting to, you know, being back in the arms of a loved one, you know, and she's telling you she loves you, and you've completely switched off all your emotions inside. It's a difficult place to be. Yeah. yeah, I think there's a lot of things going on, right? And it's hard to pinpoint exactly what's going on, but you know, that's a feeling that you've got inside, and hey, you just got to roll with it, right? Like at the time, looking back now, you know, I don't think talking about that kind of stuff was in. You know, I don't think people did it. You know, if people had PTSD, it was generally the whole process of going through that was done away from the rest of the teams, just because like men have never been good at sharing that kind of stuff, right? And even when I was in, it was quite taboo. Like no one really spoke about it. You'd never confide in your mates about what you'd seen and done, and like maybe you'd had a sleepless night or whatever. You know, now or later on in my career, it completely changed, and I know there's a lot now about men's mental health, and which is a great thing. But at that time, it was just like me on my own kind of thing. But again, you know, I got through it, and that made me a stronger person.
Pre-going and coming back, like, what's the distinctive thing that you can see where a mindset has changed? Like, it's changed for you or given you something different after going to war and coming back? Was there anything?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things the British military wasn't good at, I don't know if it is now, hopefully it is, was decompression. You know, you go to a war conflict and the tempo is massive, as you can imagine. The work rate is massive. There is no finish line. You don't know when this is going to end because you don't know where it's going to go. You don't really know what's going to come around the next corner and what's going to confront you next. Like I say, you plan for everything, but be prepared for the unexpected, and you'll always get that. So you kind of tuned into that, you tune into that fear, to that environment, and you get on with it. And then what we used to do, you come home and you go straight back into supposedly normal life. Well, that's difficult when, you know, you may have lost people, or you may have seen this, or you may have seen that, and you've got this crazy aggressive mentality in your head, and you get home and then you haven't had time to decompress it and let it calm down and, okay, put that to bed now. You're straight into supposedly another life. We binge life. We binge this craziness straight into binge normality, what normality is being at home with a family or with your friends, and we don't get the time to, you know, filter that badness or the aggressive bit out and straight into it. So you go into it, you become a little bit aggressive, a little bit, don't see what the everyday problem in civilian street is when you've just had somebody who's got no house, no family, half the family missing. That's a real problem, not the fucking washing machine's broke or the car's been stolen or the kids had a fight at school. So it's, you're like, so what? That's kind of the mood swings and difficulties of coming from a high tempo, crazy world into a supposedly normal, and then back into that again. I think now, and I hope that, you know, when people come back from conflict and these places, they get that period of decompress, talk amongst yourselves first, get it out, chest poke each other before you get home, get things out off your plate, sort yourself out, get checked out, and then go home. Because it's unfair. Because the people at home are, when you're in war and conflict, they're out in war and conflict, worrying where the hell you are, what's going on, and you know, trying to keep the house together, the family together, the friends together. So that was difficult, I think, and that's why, you know, a lot of issues we're having today are happening because people haven't had a chance to decompress and get shit off the chest. And it's always, for a soldier, you know, you always think about, if only I'd have stepped to the left, that could have happened. If only I'd have done this, if only I'd done that. Or I could look at it and go, well, Jordan, that was your fault. You should have told me to do that. Or get that off your plate before you go home, because that's on your plate, and you inevitably end up taking it out of your wife, your partner, you know, your aggression, and they're like, whoa, where did that come from? So that's the difference in terms of mentally managing and mood swings and, you know.
Yeah. So for yourself, throughout your career, your military career, were some of the harder times when you got back home?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I mean, I enjoyed the tempo of, you know, what the regiment was all about and what conflict, and I loved it. And I wanted more of it. I didn't want to miss out. You know, it's not until you get older you realise actually what you're missing out on is your proper life back home. Kids growing up or doing things or whatever it might be, yeah. So I loved it, and then a lot of people do. You're almost volunteering for the next mission if you could. And I think everybody did, you know, and yeah, so I enjoyed it while I was there. I knew it was a time frame that you could do this for, and I just wanted to get as much as I possibly could out of it. Keep going back and doing whatever it might be, and not always in conflict. Sometimes it was in, you know, natural disaster type stuff, but helping, getting out there, doing some different situation, thinking on your feet and making a difference. That's what it was all about, and I loved it. I loved every minute of it.